Hello, everyone. Let's have more news about the Miami Heat. But first, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Former NBA All Star Jermaine O'Neal has joined the list of voices questioning the methods and leadership of longtime Miami Heat president Pat Riley. During an appearance on the Out the Mud podcast hosted by Tony Allen and Zach Randolph, O'Neal became the latest former player to cast doubt on the way Riley handles player relationships and roster decisions, especially when it comes to veterans. He joined the Heat for the 2008-09 season, playing less than 2 full seasons in Miami before departing. During the podcast, he said that players had a tough time dealing with the strict rules the team implements. O'Neal's inclusion in the conversation underscores the evolving perception of Riley's management style. Once praised for building dynasties in Los Angeles and Miami, Riley is increasingly being viewed through a more critical lens by some around the league. As scrutiny of the Heat's front office decisions has intensified, especially following a disappointing 2024-25 season, Riley hasn't shied away from addressing his critics. During a press conference earlier this year, Riley responded to allegations that he may be out of touch with today's NBA. Maybe I am, Riley said, according to Bleacher Report. Still, he remained firm in his belief that he is capable of leading the franchise forward and emphasized that he has no plans to step down. The Heat's struggles this past season, including inconsistency and another early playoff elimination, only heightened questions about whether Riley's traditional team building approach still fits the modern game. His track record remains undeniable, but a growing number of observers have begun to wonder if his insistence on continuity and discipline is becoming outdated in a more player driven era. Now let's go to another video. Don't forget to leave a like.
To the KD timeline part of things, and then we'll transition into what the Heat might have to offer for Durant. But according to John Gambadero, who is probably the most tapped in Phoenix Suns reporter, he's a radio guy, he's been there in Arizona for countless years. He said that KD is expected to be traded before the 2025 NBA draft. Now, obviously, that date is June 25th and June 26th. And then when you pair that up with the report last week, that Shams Charania said the week prior to the NBA draft is going to be absolutely nuts with trades and other news around the NBA. And he feels like that's going to be more of like free agency to a degree with the trade market rather than the actual free agency period the week after. So that kind of lines up to where the week prior to the draft, that probably is when KD would be traded. And I'll say this from a Miami Heat perspective, not only as a fan, but as a general observer of the sport as well. I like that there will be clarity on Durant and with the Miami Heat. If I wouldn't say it's a free agency period, but if most of the transactions, the big trades are happening before this year's draft, well, that will allow Miami to go into a free agency period where they want to re-sign Davion Mitchell and maybe make some other moves to where they know what to expect, because if KD's traded elsewhere, if the Grizzlies come out and say they're not trading Ja, or like whatever you want to say, if the Heat are going into the draft knowing that they aren't trading that pick, well, then they could just take best player available at multiple different positions and re-sign Davion Mitchell with no issue. So I am a massive fan that it seems like we will know more about what the Heat are going to do or trying to do this offseason before the NBA draft. So I like the timeline here. But let's get more into Kevin Durant and what it might cost, because apparently they have gradually declined in what they're asking for. Kelly Iko, who covers the Houston Rockets, said that Phoenix is aggressive in pursuit of A, trading Kevin Durant, and B, regaining full control of their draft capital, starting with the number 10 pick in this upcoming draft. Houston has fielded several calls from Phoenix, who has since gradually lowered their asking price for Durant. There is a price where the Rockets would be interested, but with the fear of breaking up their roster for a 36-year-old coming off injury, doubt remains over a deal materializing. So, couple takeaways here. One, I truly don't believe Kevin Durant will be traded to Houston, because although in that report, which is why we showed it, the Suns are allegedly taking their asking price for Durant down, which could help Miami, I don't think it's going to go to the point to where Houston isn't going to trade any of their young guys. Like, I think they would still ask for one of them, maybe Jalen Green, maybe a Reed Shepard, maybe a Jabari Smith, maybe a Cam Whitmore, maybe a Tariq. And I'm not sure, but it sounds like Phoenix would at least want one or two of those guys. And it looks like Houston's not able to do that, which is good news for Miami. And I also think teams like San Antonio, Minnesota, and maybe even our own Miami Heat would probably be willing to offer more for Durant than the Houston Rockets are at this point because they've got a really good young core and they don't want to break that up, as Kelly Eichel mentioned, with a 37-year-old to be this upcoming year. So that's interesting. But then here's the part that makes it really intriguing for Miami. Well, Matt Moore, who is HP Basketball on Twitter, reported that the Suns have indicated to teams that center is at a premium for them in any KD talks. He might stick around, referring to Durant, but the biggest interest in Phoenix is solving the center position, which has been a disaster since moving on from DeAndre Ayton. We obviously know that Yusuf Nurkic has been the center for them before he got traded at the deadline. And I find that interesting because if the Miami Heat are going to be talking trade with the Phoenix Suns on Durant, well, it makes a lot of sense that Phoenix would probably try to acquire Kel'el Ware, the 15th overall pick in last year's draft, who showed a lot of promise, to potentially be their center of the future alongside Devin Booker, Ryan Dunn, and some of their other young pieces. So to me, that's the part where that report makes a lot of sense and will likely start our conversation on a trade. So before we get into it, would you trade Kel'el Ware for KD? We've talked briefly about this, but I'm going to give you my thoughts coming up here in a second. Type Y for yes or type N for no. You can take it back a month, 3 weeks ago. I forgot when I was making this video originally, but when I was talking about what I would offer for KD, I would say consistently, I am not doing Kel'el Ware. I said I would not trade Kel'el for KD due to KD needing a new contract, 37 years old. But after a little bit of consideration and some thoughts and getting more scouting on this NBA draft class, there is a pathway for me being fine sending Kel'el Ware. Now, when I say that, I do want to make it abundantly clear, this pathway is like my way or the highway. Like, it is a very narrow path, if you will, to where I would be okay with this. And what do I mean by that? Well, this is what I would do if I was the Miami Heat. If the Suns offered KD and said, yeah, we need Kel'el Ware, non-negotiable. Well, I'll just say, well, here's this then. You're getting Terry Rozier, and you're not getting any draft picks. Like, I truly feel that way. And you could say I'm delusional. You could say whatever you want when referring to yours truly. But I am going to stand on this point because I do not want to trade Kel'el Ware for KD. But if I am trading Kel'el for Kevin, then I am not trading any draft capital. And I want to get rid of Terry Rozier's expiring $26 million contract. And if you're Phoenix, you're like, well, I'm sure maybe we could get a draft pick out there, but Kel'el Ware was pretty solid as a rookie. He could be really, really good in the future. Duncan Robinson going to be acquired and then released to give us cap relief on the second apron. And then Terry Rozier isn't expiring. So, as I'll consistently say, if I'm trading Kel'el Ware for Kevin Durant, it means I am not giving up any draft capital. Because Kel'el showed me just way too much as a rookie for me to trade him for a 37-year-old. As good as KD is and still how dominant he is offensively, I ain't trading this young pup that just was unbelievable. 7 foot, 7'4.5" wingspan, showed a little bit of a three-point shot, a rim deterrent, a good rebounder, an absolute lob threat who's got solid ball skills as well. He just showed so much promise to where I'm not going to guarantee he's going to be an all-NBA center. I'm not going to guarantee he's an all-star center. But I'm willing to make the bet after seeing him play 64 games as a rookie that when he adds weight to his frame, he improves his motor a little bit, understands better defensive positioning. You're talking about a center that absolutely could be an all-NBA defense center. And then if he's able to develop a back-to-the-basket game, a little bit of a face-up game, a more consistent three-point shot, well, now we're talking about a player that I mentioned that could be an all-star. I don't want a prospect hug, and I hate prospect hugging, and I've been that way for the past couple of years, like where I'm very adamant against it. Like people in the comments would say, I'm not trading Hawkes and Jovic for Damian Lillard. I'd be like, I'll ship him out. I don't give a crap. But I am a little bit hesitant of trading Kel'el Ware in this specific scenario. More conversation to come here, but get started with Prize Picks today, the sponsor on today's show, the daily fantasy sports platform I play every single day. And with the basketball championship series here, well, you got to take advantage of the last time you could put players from the hardwood in your lineup, whether it's points, rebounds, assists, The basketball playoffs are headed towards enshrining a first-time champ in more than 50 years. Don't miss your last chance to cash in on history with Prize Picks. Pick more or less on player stats, like those points, rebounds, assists, and you can win up to 2,000 times your cash today. Prize Picks invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. And luckily for you, today is Taco Tuesday. Every Tuesday, Prize Picks discounts several projections on the board, usually by 15 to 25%. And today, there's no basketball. There's no hockey, but there is baseball, and that is where my entry went today with Taco Tuesday. That discount from 6 to 4.5 pitcher strikeouts for the man himself, Paul Skeens. I paired that up with Aaron Judge and Seiya Suzuki, more than 1.5 total bases, less than a half a run. 3-player entry here. I'm taking advantage of Taco Tuesday. I advise you to do the same. Join me and the millions of others on Prize Picks today. Download the app and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That is code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Links in the description and comments of today's video. Prize Picks. Run your game. Let's go back and talk about why I would be willing to make that trade where we're giving away Duncan, Terry Rozier, and Ware for Kevin Durant. Well, one, you retain all of your draft capital in that hypothetical deal. And some people might say it's not enough for Kevin Durant to offer Ware and just those 2 players. Well, if I'm offering Kalel, I'm not giving up any draft capital at this stage of KD's career with his contract situation. I feel very strongly about that. But you would also not retain your 3 first-round picks, number 20 in 2030, 2032, or some other combinations. But you're retaining Andrew Wiggins, Nikola Jovic, Jaime Jaquez Jr. to make other moves. So you can trade Wiggins and Jaquez for a starting caliber center to replace Kalel Ware to make it a more win-now move. You could package those 3 first-round picks in Wiggins, Jovic, Jaquez for a star point guard. And I would have to look more in depth financially, but what if you did make that initial trade for KD and then package those 3 players on your screen with draft capital for like a Ja Morant? Now you have Ja, Tyler, KD, Bam as your core 4. If that doesn't happen, at bare minimum, you can just draft Kalel Ware's replacement with the 20th overall pick. And there are some solid centers that are expected to be around that area that could be plug-and-play guys, but also long-term answers at the center position as well. Like, are these guys more talented than Kalel Ware? I think one of them is. That would be Thomas Sorber. I believe if you look at these 5 centers, Sorber, Wolf, Maxi Reynow, Joan Behringer, and Asa Newell, I think all 5 of them are worthy first-round picks. Thomas Sorber would have went in the lottery last year. I feel very strongly about that. The other 4, maybe, maybe not, but Sorber would have. So I think Sorber is a better prospect coming out than Kalel Ware is. So, I would be all in on taking Sorber if he's there at 20, even if the Heat keep Kalel Ware, because having those 3, Bam, Sorber, and Ware would be unbelievable, but that's a conversation for a different day. The point is this. You keep 20, you trade Ware, and you have one of these guys be your backup center, and then you bring in a veteran either on the other trade market when you trade a Jovic, Jaquez, or Wiggins. Like, you could just do so many different things. Draft these guys to be your backup, be that long-term center once the veteran you trade for moves on. Like, there's just so many different combinations you can make that really, really intrigue me. So I'll go back to this trade that I proposed a little bit earlier, where the Heat get KD, and all they give up is Ware, Rozier, and Duncan. They don't give up a pick. Would you make this trade? Let me know your thoughts. A for accept, D for decline. Would you trade Ware, Rozier, and Duncan for KD? Remember, you're keeping Jovic, Jaquez, and Wiggins. You're keeping all your draft capital. Would you do it? Let me know. A for accept or D for decline. Well, the reason why I even lean a little bit more yes is because this is how I look for it. If you were to trade for Kevin Durant and keep Kalel Ware, you're trading the 20th overall pick. That's just how it is. Like, if you keep Ware, the 20th overall pick is gone. So if you are trading KD or for KD and you keep the 20th pick by trading Ware, you're essentially trading Ware, Duncan, and Rozier for Kevin Durant and a young center. So, like, let's just say in a perfect world, Thomas Sorber's available at 20. Who knows if he is? Who knows if he's not? But let's just say him or Asa Newell. One of them will be there. you're basically trading Ware, Rozier, and Duncan for KD and Sorber, Noel. Like, that feels like a pretty good trade. Like, it does. So, yeah, I really think that it would be something I'd be willing to do. And then if you have that concern of, well, then we have the new rookie center next to Bam, and I don't know if they'd be able to fit together. Well, you can try to find a center that you believe would fit next to KD, Bam, and would be perfect by trading Andrew Wiggins for him. Or you can move Bam to center, play KD at the 4, keep Andrew Wiggins at the 3.
You guys could subscribe. That'd be great. Appreciate you stopping by. As today we had some interesting fodder around the Miami Heat and particularly their coaching staff. I do think that the Miami Heat fan got a little titillated today, briefly. But there was a report today that came out from Eurohoops that said the Miami Heat had an interest, and somebody even said that they were flying in for an interview, Sergio Scariolo, who is currently the Spanish national coach. He was a former assistant with the Toronto Raptors, did win a championship. He was on the Kawhi team, Pascal Siakam and Kyle Lowry of that fame. Has also been an established coach on the international scene, won Eurobasket, I believe, in 2022. But there was some talk, or there was some belief that the Miami Heat were bringing him in to potentially add to the staff. So this kind of led to a couple of other thoughts that everybody had in the middle of the day was, oh, okay, so is the Chris Quinn thing moving further along? Because are they just going to add, or are they just going to add him into the fold? Who's to say, who's to know? So as I'm doing the radio show today, probably around the 1 o'clock hour, Shams comes out and he says that the Suns job, there was a report earlier in the week from, I believe, John Gambadoro from Phoenix fame, that the Miami Heat, or that the Phoenix Suns were going to pick their coach sometime this week. And then it was reported today by Shams that the Suns are narrowing their choice down to 2 coaches, neither of them being Chris Quinn. He said the Phoenix Suns have narrowed their head coaching search to 2 finalists from the Cleveland Cavaliers, associate coach Johnny Bryant and assistant Jordan Ott. Both Bryant and Ott will meet with Matt Ishbia, Josh Bartelstein, and general manager Brian Gregory in Michigan later this week. This group was of approximately 8 that they interviewed of candidates. That included Ott, Miami's Chris Quinn, Dallas's Sean Sweeney, Oklahoma City's Dave Bliss, and current staff member David Fizdale. Suns franchise cornerstone Devin Booker has also been involved in the search process over the past 7 to 10 days. So we get word today, Chris Quinn, he's out of the running. Which I will say, just as an aside, I kind of feel like most people feel like it's going to go to Jordan Ott, because it feels much like the Knicks are in the ilk of Little Villanova. It feels very much like the Suns are going into the mix of Little Michigan State, and Chris Quinn being a Notre Dame guy. Don't know if that's going to go over there with their little powwow. But once again, appears that Chris Quinn is going to get passed over. Last year, I believe he was in the Lakers running. Of course, that was all kind of a shamockery because that was going to go to podcast boy JJ Redick. This was another one where it feels like he has gotten in the mix, but it feels like it's leaning which way. And I will say, there's a lot of, I don't want to say a lot of, I briefly have looked over some mentions on Suns fans that feel like they don't know how much they love all of the enabling that is going to go on with Matt Ishbia, because his decisions haven't necessarily worked out for the best so far for the Suns. So the fact that they're going to put even more people enabling him around is not the best. I think in the long run for Chris Quinn, you would have loved for him to get an opportunity like that, especially with an owner who would spend a lot of money. But it sucks for him that once again, maybe there was just another favorite that they were going to get to know other people, but he's not there in the fold. So we're all sitting here thinking for a couple of hours, we're like, okay, so are the Heat looking at Sergio Scariolo and being like, all right, we need somebody here to replace Chris Quinn, to shake up the coaching staff, because the Miami Heat have a habitat right now in their coaching staff of a lot of guys who are of the Heat ilk. Like they are guys who have been in the organization. The coaching staff, including Chris Quinn, Malik Allen, Caron Butler, Octavio De La Grana, Eric Glass, Wayne Ellington, and then their development coaches along with that. So what was the point of bringing Scariolo there? Now, I don't believe he has a current club professionally that he's under contract with. I think that is up. So he may just be looking for a gig. I don't know. But there was another chapter to this that was added because Anthony Chang of the Miami Herald did some digging on this and did a report and had a report today in the Herald. It said, in addition to Eurohoop's report Monday about the Heat expressing interest in adding Scariolo to its coaching staff, who began his coaching career in the home of Italy, is currently coaching Spain's national team and serving as an assistant coach with the Toronto Raptors. But a source close to the Heat denied that report, stating that Scariolo is not a candidate for a Heat coaching position. The Heat finished, and then gives the Heat's record. So Anthony's source is saying not true, that he's not a candidate. Bit of an odd report to come out of nowhere from Europe. Now, not the first time that I think the Heat have tried to get a wrangle on some international reports beforehand, which not here to give validity because Anthony.
The Miami Heat are in the process of a rebuild to become a title contender in the near future. Unfortunately, it is also abundantly clear that the team is lacking in the superstar department at the moment. Since their last championship run, the Heat have always been an organization spearheaded by superstars that fit the image of the Heat mentality. Led by head coach Eric Spoelstra and president Pat Riley, Miami has been one of the most successful NBA franchises when headlined by such stars. The team currently features a talented duo in Bam Adebayo and Tyler Herro. With Herro earning his first All-Star appearance this season, the team is well on its way to forming a certified core. But it is not enough. The Heat had to give up a bona fide star in Jimmy Butler last season. In return, they received a talented wing with championship experience in Andrew Wiggins. But it has been made apparent that Wiggins is not a first option star either. Miami needs to make some major changes to be competitive again. In light of this, a player that could be the right fit is New Orleans Pelicans forward Zion Williamson. At 24 years old, Williamson fits the timeline for the Heat. While there are pre-existing concerns involving his health and personal life, Miami could be the right place for him to make a fresh start. The Pelicans have made their intentions to trade the forward quite apparent. While he has garnered interest from a few teams, the Detroit Pistons being the primary link, the forward hasn't seen an offer just yet. With this in mind, we look at a trade proposal with the Pelicans to help the Heat bring Williamson over to Florida. The notion of Zion Williamson joining the Miami Heat is certainly an intriguing one. The Pelicans star has been on the receiving end of a lot of criticism regarding his health, his conditioning, and the scandals that have plagued his personal life. And you, fan, what do you think about Zion Williamson's situation? Leave your opinion in the comments.